Good morning, friends. I welcome all my senior respective members, my junior members, and my friends. So, our today topic is based on the GST documentation in reference of the tax invoice, refund voucher, receipts voucher, delivery challan, payment voucher, and their related provisions. Why this session is so important to listen? Because there are some we know everything. We are the professional as well as the non-professional also joining. We know each and everything about the what type of documents is required in GST provision, but this session will make the value addition in your knowledge as well. Some points you are not know, by seeing this session you will be able to understand, okay, in that way we have to maintain the documentation. So without wasting any time, let's discuss this. Today agenda is GST rule of tax invoice. What is a tax invoice? What are the components we have to include in our tax invoice? What are the different scenario where we require the tax invoice and their respective provisions? Then GST rules related to bill of supply, GST rules for receipts voucher, payment voucher, and refund voucher. What are those circumstances under which we have to issue these type of vouchers, and there what are the components we have to include while issuing these type of vouchers. Then GST rule for debit note and credit note. What are those situations in which these debit note and credit note shall be issued by the supplier, and other supplementary document like revised tax invoice, and one more we will discuss in our forthcoming slides. So this is our today agenda. Topic number 1, GST rule related to tax invoice. So tax invoice is a document which is issued by the registered taxable supplier to the recipient by way of as a proof that he has supplied something, and it contains lot of information which we will discuss. Revised tax invoice also is considered as a tax invoice. Okay, tax invoice, if value is less than 200 rupees, so it does not require to the supplier to issue a tax invoice. Up to 200 rupees it is not necessary to issue. Then tax invoice, if issued to unregistered persons, it cannot be converted into a tax invoice to a registered person. It is a special provision in this act that suppose by mistake you issue a tax invoice by mentioning that this is related to the unregistered person, and later you realize that this is a supply made to a registered person, so you can't change it, so it is a liability for you. Then supplier supplied taxable as well as exempted goods or services, so it shall issue invoice cum bill of supply. So this is a very important point. Sometime in case of fraud, confiscation of goods, misstatement of facts, or seizure, in that case after this proceeding, whatever the tax invoice you issue, so you have to mark input tax credit is not admissible. You have to specially mention on it. Okay. Second thing, unregistered person who is not registered under GST cannot issue a invoice with including GST. He cannot mention the GST in his invoice. He has to issue a simple invoice in it. Topic number 2, tax in topic number 2, and there is another topic. I divided the situations where what are the provision of the tax invoice in case of supply of goods, and what are the tax provision in case of tax invoice issue in case of supply of services. First we will discuss the tax invoice in case of supply of goods. So a registered person supply taxable goods may be issued a tax invoice before at the time of supply made through movement of goods or delivery of goods to the recipient. These two conditions, but not after the delivery of goods. Delivery challan is required, which should be attached with the goods in case of non-issue of tax invoice. Sometime we will discuss. Sometime it is not possible to issue the tax invoice at the time of delivery, so delivery challan must be attached. Okay. Continuous supply of goods means a supply of goods which is provided or agreed to be provided continuously or recurring basis for that by you can say by way of contract. In that case, invoice shall be issued before at the time of the payment received or statement issue. Means if there is a continuous supply of goods and periodically the supplier has to make a statement and send it to the recipient, in that case the date of that statement once he issue to a recipient or a date of payment, whichever is earlier, he has to issue a tax invoice. For if a good sent for approval basis like jewelry within the state or outside the state, so delivery challan should be issued at the time of removal such type of goods, and you will also require in that case. If a person carrying such goods can carry invoice books with itself if suppose coincidentally customer agree with the you can say term and condition of such supply, so he agree and say okay, I am ready to purchase it, so he directly issue the tax invoice and charge the IGST if it is outside the state. Okay, but if suppose goods is not approved up to 6 months, so within 6 months he has to issue the tax invoice from the date of removal. Okay, this is one thing. Second, delivery challan shall be issued for goods sent for export, promotion, exhibition. Sometimes it's happen that the goods sent outside of India for exhibition or consignment basis for export promotion. So in that case, although this is not a supply or this is not a export, so in that case the goods should be sent under the delivery challan. Once the sale has been made outside India, sale shall be made outside India, so in that case he has to issue the tax invoice there, and if whatever the provision related to export like LUT basis or IGST payment basis, he will pay and get the refund accordingly. Okay, tax invoice shall not be issued if goods sold or not brought back within 6 months. Yes, if suppose such type of goods sent outside India for export, promotion or exhibition and is not brought back within 6 months, in that case he has to issue tax invoice and then claim the IGST and CST accordingly. 2.1 tax invoice in case of supply of goods. This is the another some provisions. Suppose the good transportation of goods made in lots in batches, like there is so many there is a very big crane which are deassembled and keep it into the separate vehicles. So in that case, first of all, a complete invoice will be generated and send it with the first consignment. This is not original but only detail. Then for any subsequent delivery of such parts will be sent with the delivery challan as well as the certified copy of invoice. Each consignment should be attached delivery challan and attested invoice copy, certified true copy. Original invoice shall be sent at the last consignment. So these are the conditions, very important. Second, delivery challan shall be issued in the following conditions. First, suppose where the tax invoice is not required, not available or not required, means delivery challan instead of tax invoice for transportation of goods in some specific circumstances. So what are those circumstances? When you are supplying a liquid gas and you does not know about the quantity detail, or goods sent for job work between the principal to job worker and job worker to principal. In that case only delivery challan you have to issue. You not need to issue tax invoices. So this is the provision. Now here I mentioned what are the component we have to include our delivery challan. So the name, address and GST number of supplier, date and serial number of delivery challan, maximum 16 character you can include in the serial number, the name, address and GST number of recipient, quantity detail, description of good, HSN code, description of goods, value of goods or services supplied, rate of tax, amount of tax it should be mentioned, place of supply in if it is in case of interstate with code, okay, and digital signature or a signature of authorized person it is required. So these are the component of delivery challan. 2.2 tax invoice case of supply of services. Tax invoice is issued before or after at the time of supply made within the time limit. It is 30 days and 45 days. 30 days is if supply you are made to a normal person, but if it is not a banking company or financial institution, NBFC, for that there is a 45 days time limit. But for continuous supply of services, here the continuous supply of services, if a registered person supplying services to a recipient for more than 3 months continuously basis, so in that case there are four different situations. Number one, if you know the date of payment, if it is fixed under the contract, so the issue invoice shall be issued on or before the due date of payment. If we don't know about the due date of the payment, it may be changed, so date of issue of invoice shall be on or before the date of receipt of payment. In case the service whatever we are providing it's complete, related based on the event, and event is completed, in that case issue shall be issued on or before the date of completion of event. Suppose sometime it's happened that the you whatever the service you are providing is seized by the recipient say okay, I does not require your services. For in that case, tell the date from starting the services to the date of seize of services. On the date of seize of services you have to issue a tax invoice in that case. So these are the provision for normal supply of services or continuous supply of services. 2.2.1 tax में there are some different category of the registered person for which there are some additional requirement are there. For bank, financial institution, NBFC, consolidated tax invoice shall be issued monthly basis, and there is no requirement of serial number is requirement of serial number of invoice. GTA for that they have to issue a tax invoice with additional following detail: gross weight, name of concerned consignee, registered number of vehicle, whatever vehicle it is, GST number of a person who is paying tax, it may be consignor, it may be consignee, and place of origin or destination very necessary, and description of goods. Passenger transporter services, no serial number is required, address of recipient is also does not require. Multiplex screens, e-ticket mandatory to issue, but for a simple screen like cinema halls, normal or intermediate whatever they may choose, they can issue the invoice. 2.2.2 there are some general provision I have mentioned here. First of all, HSN and SSN code. So HSN code is used for basically for goods or services, goods supply of goods, and SSC code is services accounting code is used for the supply of services. So HSN code is a 8-digit code and SSC code is a 6-digit code. But there is some requirement that HSN in every invoice, if supplier has a turnover more than 1.5 crore up to 5 crore, he has to mention 2-digit of the HSN code, and if turnover is more than 5 crore rupees, so it has to mention 4-digit of HSN code. For export invoice and supplier to SCZ or SCZ unit or developers, it has to specially mention in his tax invoice that supply, if it is paying the integrated tax, so he has to follow the first option. If it is under the letter under undertaking without payment of IGST, then he has to maintain this tax. So this is the one provision. 2.2.3 second part of general provision. So we have to give the serial number detail into our GSTR1 on monthly basis. Second, the tax invoice shall be issued in the following cases: if it is for the supply of goods, so tax invoice shall be issued in 3 copies. First copy for recipient, second copy for transport, third copy for supplier itself. For supply of services, only 2 invoice would be raised, one for recipient and second for supplier itself. In case of export, value of supply in export invoice must be matched with the shipping bill or bill of export. So these are the general provisions, not much more. So this is the 2.2.4 third part of general provision. New amendment, few amendment has been made in the GST Act with effect from 1st April 2020. Registered person shall issue a tax invoice with QR code, quick response code, if aggregate turnover during the financial is more than 500 crore rupees, if it's made supply to unregistered person. If it does not follow such procedure, so in that case he is liable to a penalty up to 25,000 rupees. Second, with from 1st of April 2020, registered person shall issue a E-Tax invoice if it is aggregate turnover during the financial year is more than 100 crore rupees. It issue the tax invoice after generating the invoice reference number, which would be a get from the e-way bill portal. Third, in case of non-compliance, invoice shall be considered as an invalid invoice. Duplicate copies rule does not apply in this case. To generate the e-tax invoice, first of all, GST INV01 form is required to be mandatory. So this is the third part of general provision. 2.2.5 GST rule tax invoice. Basically, this is the slide related to the component of the tax invoice. So name, address, GST number of supplier as well as the recipient, address of delivery if there is a difference in the location of the recipient and the location of the delivery of goods. Bill to ship to case, name of state and a code if it is giving to the unregistered person, serial number, date of issue, serial number and date of issue of tax invoice, 16 maximum 16 numbers, description of goods, services, HSN code, and quantity detail required. Okay, then confirmation value of goods or services, rate of tax, amount of tax to be charged. This is also required. Confirmation means a supplier shall mention in his invoice whether it is a tax payable under reverse charge or not. If it is reverse charge, so he has to mention yes or no in his tax invoice. Okay, now the next is signature or digital signature for supplier or authorized person. But if it is a electronic generated invoice, so it does not require the digital signature or any type of signature on it. Okay, here I just wanted to mention two things. First of all, name, address, recipient, address of delivery along with the name and state code if such recipient is unregistered person, and value of taxable supply is 50,000 rupees or more. Okay, second thing, if it is less than 50,000 rupees, so it is up to the recipient that he gave his address. You can ask the address from the recipient if recipient requested for that. So these things we have to keep in mind. If we forget to mention the place of supply along with the name and state in course of interstate trade or commerce, so there is a penalty of 25,000 rupees. So be aware, it is a maximum, but be aware of it. Okay, so these are the provision of component of tax invoice. Point number 3, GST rule receipt voucher. So receipt voucher is issued at the time when we receive the advances from the supply from the recipient, although we does not make any supply of goods or services. Okay, in that case, tax invoice will be issued after we make the supply of goods or services. If that if we made the supply in the month in which we received the advances, so there is no need to make any adjustment of advances in GST R1. Third point is that such rule means adjustment of advances rules means GST payment on advances apply only in case of services only, not for supply of goods. Now the amendment is made. Okay, so it is applicable only for services. Adjustment or advances shall be consolidated basis in GST R1. There is no need to require the detail about the against which invoice we are making the adjustment. The components are there, everything is same, but there is a change is that description of services, amount of advances and rate of tax. Point number 3. So amount of advances we have to made along with the rate of tax and amount of tax, the rest are same. Topic number 3.1, GST rule refund voucher. Refund voucher basically is used in the reference to the advances we received from the recipient, as we discussed earlier. Suppose there is a refusal from the customer that he does not require any services, and services has not been made on the basis of that instructions. No tax invoice is being issued. So in that case, supplier prepare a refund voucher, refund the amount to the person, and then prepare filling all the details during the month of the or refund voucher into GST R1. This provision only applicable in case of supply of services, as the advances for the any advances received in respect of goods is not applicable as of now. So only they for if we are talking about the component of the receipt voucher, so there is only one change. Point number 3, amount of advances we have to make it amount of refund. Rest information is same. Okay, so this is the refund 3.2 GST rule payment voucher provisions. Payment voucher is issued in case of a person, means a recipient, he receive any supply of goods or services from the unregistered person or from an unregistered person, as well as from the registered person who is supplying goods under reverse charge. Okay, the date of issue a payment voucher shall be the date of payment made to a registered person. Okay, detail of payment voucher similarly during the month will be giving to the GST R1 as we are giving for the refund voucher as well. All component here the name, address, GST number, supplier and the recipient, serial number with date of issue, HSN code, SSC code, description of services or goods, amount of payment and rate and amount of tax, place of supply with the state code and state name if it is interstate supply, and signature and digital. Topic number 4, GST rule debit note, credit note. I categorize this into two way. First we will discuss the debit note provisions, then we will go to the credit note section. So debit note issued by a taxable supplier. Purpose of the issue to charge additional tax of value supply, means if a person who issue an invoice with suppose 100 rupees, later he realized that value of the goods is 120 rupees, so he will raise the debit note or supplementary invoice by rupees of 20 rupees and their respective GST. Okay, debit note, credit note will be issued based on the place of supply. It may be IGST, it may be CGST or UGST or SGST. Same information of debit note will be given into the GST R1. One or more debit note can be issued against the one or more tax invoices. So these are the provision. In case of credit note, it is same issue by a taxable supplier. Purpose of issue to reduce the tax or value of supply, means suppose the customer refuse your services or return your goods, so in that case you will issue a credit note. Declaration same shall be given to GST R1. Important point, no credit note shall be issued in case of bad debt. If some customer is insolvent or denied to pay the payment, so you will not issue a credit note against it. Okay, means you does not charge claim the input GST liability, reduce your GST liability. One or more debit note one or more credit note can be issued in the reference of one or more tax invoice. Second thing, credit note cannot be issued in that case where there is a negotiation of price after making a supply. Remember this point. Okay, 7 point very important, credit note shall not be issued after the September month of the following year during related to the transaction which happened in the previous financial years, or date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. Suppose there is a one transaction happen in 2017-18 and but you forget to issue a credit note and you realize these things in October 18-19, so in that case you cannot issue the credit note. This is a very important point. Only supplier has a right to issue the debit note, credit note with GST. Recipient cannot issue a debit note, credit note with GST. They can issue normal debit note and credit note without mentioning the GST implications. So these points need to remember. 4.1, component of the debit note and credit note: name of the address, GST name, address, GST number of supplier who issued debit note or credit note, nature of document, whether it is a debit note or credit note, serial number, maximum 16 character in both cases, the name, address and GST number of recipient, serial number, date of original tax invoice, very important, it should be mentioned because and it means that against which tax invoice you are issue a debit note or credit note. Value of supply of goods, services, rate of tax, amount to be charged, and value of supply of goods or services, rate of tax, amount of tax to be reduced. Means one is to reduce the liability, credit note is related to reduce the liability of GST, and debit note is related to increase the GST liability on from the supplier point of view. Signature, digital signature is required for authorized person. One thing here to remember, that if any supplier issue a credit note, so he cannot reduce the GST liability until the recipient reverse the input credit and simultaneously pay that liability. After that, on that case, only supplier can take the means only supplier can reduce its liability. So this is the provision. Topic number 5, GST rule revised invoice. Revised invoice is required when there is a few changes in the original invoice, and by mistake you made a mistake in the original invoice, so there is one option that you can revise the invoice, and you have to give this detail into your GST R1. So registered person can invoice consolidated tax invoice for all unregistered person if there is an interstate supply which value is less than 2,50,000 rupees in the same state. So in that case, consolidated revised tax invoice may be issued separately for all registered person located in the state. Okay, revised tax invoice can be issued for the period. This is the provision related to the person who is liable to get the registration number within 30 days. So he has to issue the revised tax invoice for those supply which made from the effective date of registration till the date of issue a certificate, because it will be helpful for the customer to claim the credit on those supply earlier which are considered as a supply from the unregistered person. Now after getting the registration, the registered supplier file the GST1, give the input credit to the customer, and customer get the input credit for the same. So it would be beneficial. So this is a very good clause into the GST Act. 5.1 GST rule revised invoice. So here I mentioned the component of the revised invoice. Not much changes, but let's discuss. Name, address, GST number of supplier. The word revised invoice we will mention on the front page in place of tax invoice. Then CL number 16 digit, name, address and GST number recipient, include the state and the code if it is related to the unregistered person. CL number and the date of the original tax invoice against which invoice we are revise our invoicing, it is mandatory. Value of amended supply, rate of tax and amount of tax, and digital signature of the person. Digital signature or a simple manual signature is required of the authorized person. So this is the GST rule related to the component rule related to the revised invoice. 5.2 GST rule bill of supply. So bill of supply is issued by those person who is providing exempted goods or services. They do not need to issue a tax invoice, they will issue the bill of supply. A person who is registered in the composition scheme, he shall issue the bill of supplies and will not charge GST in both cases. If value of goods or services less than 200 rupees, so there is no need to require to issue bill of supply. Okay. Tax invoice or other document of non-GST supply like petrol, alcohol, liquor. In that case, whatever the documentation required by in any other act applicable at the time in force in India, it may be acceptable. There is no need to issue the bill of supply separately. Here is the component of the bill of supply: name, address, GST number of supplier and recipient. Bill of supply shall be marked CL number, date of issue, HSN code, SSC code, value of supply of goods. Everything is same, equals to the tax invoice, but there is a no requirement to mention the GST, rate of GST and GST, because it is not applicable for the bill of supply, because this is related to the exempted goods and services and the composition scheme. So these things we have to consider, and very important clause. So this is all about of today's session. I hope you like this session and enjoy as well. I try to cover mostly all the documentation process applicable in GST and it will, I am sure that it will helpful to make value addition in your knowledge as well. So we will meet soon with a more interesting video related to GST. Thank you so much guys, and we will meet again. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.